Hey everybody, I'm Katie with ISAC. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. The topic today is Enriching the Employee Experience, and our speakers today are Jennifer Dickey and Isaac Mallory with HR Performance Solutions. This presentation will be 45 minutes to an hour long. There is a chat or message box where you can submit questions, and I believe we will be taking questions after each section, but I will let Jennifer verify that. And now I will go ahead and turn it on over to Jennifer and Isaac.
Awesome.
Hi guys, we're glad to be with you today. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Isaac Mallory and my wonderful colleague Jennifer Dickey is with me.
Hello everybody. We only thought it would be fitting to bring Isaac on as well.
With a name like mine, I don't really get to do that too often, so I'm glad to be with you all. So Jennifer has just shared with you one of the most important slides in our slides deck. This is Jennifer from...
This is 1992. It says 1992, but this was actually just taken last week. So.
This is Jennifer's headshot from a week ago. So no, this actually is Jennifer from 1992. Now, before we get into the presentation, we're bringing this up because we want to point out, not only did Jennifer have fantastic hair in 1992.
I did. You
did, you really did. But we also want to point out that a lot has changed in the HR space in the past, since 1992. We won't count the years. And we want to kind of talk through what this current state looks like of HR. Because if we can understand that, then we can make better decisions about how we run our HR departments, how we lead individuals, how we help our organizations. And so we'll start from there. Now, over here in this big circle in the lower right-hand corner, you're going to see our email address, hello@hrperformancesolutions.net. If you want to, you can send us an email or you can connect with Jennifer or I via LinkedIn as we go. The reason that we have that up there is if you want to get in touch with us, some of the things that Jennifer does, one of the things that Jennifer does, is she does on-site communications and soft skills training. And once a quarter or so, we give away one of these on-site trainings or we grade out positions for people. We're a compensation firm as well. So if you'd like to be entered in that, go ahead and send us an email. We'll get you registered. Now, Jennifer, you want to take it over? Take it from here.
Absolutely. So we are going to, sorry about that, move this forward here. We're
gonna try to.
Yeah.
We're having some technical difficulties.
Going to pause the screen.
Well, as we bring this up, let me tell you what you're about to see. You're about to see the golden question, and the question is, how do you know if your employees are engaged in the right things? So the reason that we ask that is because it's a very simple question, but if we're not always focused on it, then it can cost our organization. Some of the research out there shows that about 50% of the employees come into work and they don't fully understand what they're supposed to be doing, and they don't feel connected to the goals. And that is a major hurdle for organizations. Now, as we think about ways and talk about ways that are going to help our organizations, we're going to be able to kind of understand what exactly our employees are focused on and how to better focus them on the things that matter most. So as this is coming up, I'm going to remind you of some things. One of those things is that your employees have choices. In today's marketplace, it is really turning more and more into an employee's market. That means that employees have their pick of where they want to go. Research shows that about 35% of employees are so unsatisfied with their salaries that they'll leave to get a pay increase. So even though they may like other things in their organization, may have friends at their organization, they may leave in order just to get that pay increase. Now, likewise, sometimes we bring employees in and we're happy because we spend a lot of time without these positions being filled. We have individual employees who, they come in and we finally get a great employee, and you're going to see from this middle statistic. On the study of 1,000 workers, 31% reported having quit their job in just 6 months, right? Just 6 months. So that means even if you get them in the door, you still have to be doing things to make sure that they will stay, because the research shows that there's a chance that they won't, okay? Now, unemployment is another major issue right now. It's actually, again, it's this really great position and timing for employees, because employees, again, they can take a pick of where they want to go because unemployment is so low. And there's a few different ways to measure that. One's through Gallup's unemployment metric, right? And as of a few months ago, it was down at 7.9%. You get much lower than that, and some regions are much lower than that. We were just in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, where it's around a 4 or 5% unemployment rate. That means that it's going to be harder and harder to grab talent from the marketplace and hold on to them.
Yeah, I think it was in Cincinnati last week at 3.1.
Oh gosh, that's low.
Yeah,
super low.
Super low. All right, so moving on. Now that we got our screen back, so what do we want to talk about today? Today we want to talk about how to develop our top performers. Who are these individuals within our organization? And then how do we engage those top performers? So let's start with goals. Everybody remember what goals are? Let's start with those. So according to Gallup, only 50% of our employees actually know what's expected of them when they're at work. That number, that's alarming. So let's take a step back and let's get well acquainted with goals again. Because remember, goals provide direction. They set those expectations and they're going to measure success. And when we use goals correctly, they will help drive effective performance management strategies. And when you use them effectively, you're going to see higher performance levels and you'll see higher engagement levels within your organization. Goals are important. Goals provide employees that sense of purpose. It'll help your employees answer that question that we saw in the beginning of the presentation. Remember? What are those things that I'm supposed to be engaged in? Why am I here? Those goals will actually provide those answers to that question. So let's take a quick poll. Katie, if we can get that poll on the screen. How strong would you say your company goals process is? Would you say it's super strong? That your employees have goals that are aligned to business goals and managers have regular check-ins? Are they strong? We do a good job of assigning goals to employees. Are they somewhat strong? Some employees have them, some do not. Or D, what was that question again? We definitely need to focus more on this. So let's take a quick minute and have everybody participate in that. About 10 more seconds, and then we'll have Katie close that poll. And if, Katie, you can show us what those results are.
We're always excited to see the results.
Yes, we love polling.
We love polling. Thanks for playing along with us.
I know. I do this at our dinner table all the time.
That's not true, is it?
It is true. Yes. And actually, they ask for them. Ask us another question.
Well, fortunately, we have one more poll question in here.
I know.
So good for you.
I know. Thank you. All right, Katie, if you can show on the screen what the results are of that.
Is everyone able to see it?
I can't. It says must hide poll results to enable screen sharing. Let's see.
So it looks like we had 5% in super strong,
Perfect.
15% in strong, 65% in somewhat strong, and 15% in what was the question.
50%.
Great.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty normal.
Yep, that's great.
So definitely, we need some work on goals. Even though goals have been around forever, and we kind of all know, hey, yep, we should definitely have them. Our employees should have them. Those are things that we probably should venture back into, right? All right, let's move on. So according to HR Magazine, our engaged employees, they perform 20% better. They're 87% less likely to leave an organization when they're engaged, right? So what do we need to do to get there? We need to make sure that we've got strong managers, that we've got managers that are building and maintaining strong employee relationships. It's got to start there, right? Because they're directly connected to our employees. They have the opportunity to do the most damage, but they also have the most opportunities to have the most impact with our employees. And they do that in two ways. They lead and coach employees to success, but in order to build and maintain strong employee relationships, they need to make sure that when they give employees goals, that they're aligning those goals to business outcomes. It does you no good to give employees goals just for the sake of giving an employee a goal. I remember I started a position probably about 2 years ago running an HR department. And after about 3 weeks, I met with the HR manager that reported up to me to review her goals, making sure, one, she had goals and making sure that they aligned to business outcomes. One of her goals as an HR manager was to order office supplies. We laughed a bit. She was kind of excited because, one, she accomplished that goal, but what was the point of order office supplies for an HR manager? I had amazing pens and pencils. I had an awesome stapler, but what was that doing for a performer like her? She ended up being a top performer, but how engaged was she? Was she engaged in those things that mattered most? No. So we really had to sit back and reevaluate and make sure she had the right goals, that she was engaged in the things that mattered most. And those are the things that we really need to take a look at as managers, as leaders, and as HR professionals, that we have good goal alignment. And one way to be able to do that is we need to develop good tools so that we can track that. You know, it's a lot of our roles, it seems like we do a lot of babysitting, and that's not what I'm advocating. But you want to make sure that you have good tools in place so that you can track this, so that you can make sure that you have employees that are successful. So this is a good tool to be able to track something like this. If you take a look in that bottom left-hand corner, this is an example of some strategic definitions that your organization developed. So your organization is focusing on these initiatives. One of those being develop 10 new strategic partnerships. As an organization, we want to focus on this. If you go across, you'll see how many goals are linked to this strategy. So how many employees have a goal that's actually linked to this? We've got 35. You go over one more, you'll see how many goals haven't been started. Out of those 35, we've got 28 haven't been started. Out of those 35, we've got 5 in progress and 2 have been completed. This is a good way to be able to track something like this. It's a good way to be able to track it and then be proactive so that you can have conversations with your managers, so that you can start taking action, so that it doesn't get to October and you're like, well, we really didn't make any headway in terms of developing 10 new strategic partnerships. You can play a part in making sure that those business initiatives are being achieved and that your employees have a sense of purpose and they can see how they connect directly to the business. Another way to make sure that goals play a big part in business is to make sure that they align with engagement within your organization. A lot of you out there probably conduct some sort of engagement survey, right? Maybe it's an annual engagement survey or a satisfaction survey. And a lot of you out there probably conduct the survey anonymously. And if you are doing that, kudos to you. You're doing a great job, because that's a great way to provide your organization a benchmark or take a pulse of how your organization is doing in terms of engagement or satisfaction. A good way to take it, maybe a step above what you're currently doing, is doing little tiny pulse surveys, maybe doing it on a quarterly basis. And then to take it a step even above what you're currently doing, above maybe those quarterly surveys, is asking them one question and actually getting them to not take it anonymously. And I know that sounds crazy, but to be able to do that is if you ask them one question, and that question might be something like, are you happy, right? So if you ask them something like that, and maybe you're asking them, and it's not a question to where they don't feel, they feel comfortable actually putting their name on it, they may answer it because it's structured more like a social media type of question. Then you're going to be able to identify who those top performers are and if they're engaged or not engaged. Because if they're not engaged, that's going to identify who the red flags are, who you can have conversations with. And then hopefully you'll be able to take some sort of proactive strategies and put them in place and have conversations with them so that you can save those employees. So take a look here. We've got employee engagement in the middle. You've got performance scores to the far right. If you plot that all out, you'll be able to identify if you have, again, any red flag employees. Danielle Douglas, that stands out as a red flag employee. If you look on that plotted graph here, we've got Danielle Douglas at a 4.5 in terms of her performance.
Jennifer?
Look over to the left. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. We are seeing two screens. I think you just need to change your screen view. We're seeing like your current screen and then the next slide and then the current screen again. Is there a way to change the view?
How about now?
Here we go. Perfect. Thanks so much.
No, sorry about that, everybody. I think when we had our initial computer glitch, it screwed it all up. There we go. So her engagement level is at a 4, and that's 4 out of 12. And performance is a 4.5 out of 5. So we've got a high performer with low engagement. What's going on with Danielle? What kind of conversations can we have with Danielle in order to save her as a top performer? Okay? So again, here's some great tools that you can put into place in order to have throughout the year to be proactive in utilizing within your organization.
So we love data around here, and one of the things Jennifer's been talking about has to do with collecting data so that you can make data-based decisions. When you hear about terms like HR analytics, all that means is that we're collecting data and then we're using it to make better decisions. So you're going to see that as a theme throughout this presentation. You're also going to hear about it, the word on the street. That's what that is that we're using data. But it's not all data and only data. For example, there is still a very strong need for soft skills in organizations. Now, we're going to talk just for a moment about honest and candid feedback. One thing that you're going to see here is that a lot of individuals at organizations are nervous to give feedback. In fact, the research shows that about 44% of managers don't want to give feedback, constructive feedback to their employees. And it's because of what you see on the screen right here. We've all had an experience where someone has corrected us and they have done it in a harsh way or a denigrating way, and it makes us feel bad. And in academic terms, we call that a decrease in motivation and a decrease in engagement, but we just straight up feel bad. And so managers don't want to do that. Again, 44% of your managers at your organization likely fall into this group. And what they should report is that they lose sleep over it, they get sweaty, they avoid the employee, they avoid giving the feedback, they don't necessarily know how to do it in a productive way. So what they don't know is that there are formats for giving good, constructive feedback, that same feedback in a constructive and a supportive way. And when that feedback is given in a supportive way, it comes across totally different for that employee. And that employee, instead of feeling decreases in motivation, they feel more engaged, they feel more resilient, they want to do a good job. Now, this is going to be particularly true of your millennials. Your millennials want twice as much feedback as your typical employees. And so it is vital, if you're going to have an organization where employees are engaged and where you have sticky employees that stick around, it's vital that you have a way to give feedback to these employees in a positive way. I'm going to give you an example. There was a time when I was struggling with this exact same thing. I was capable and competent in other areas of my job, but I had to have a conversation with an employee that I was nervous about. I had to give honest and candid feedback to this employee. And I didn't really know how to do it. And I happened to be talking with Jennifer about it. And she said, Isaac, you say A, you say B, you say C, and that's it. And I said, oh, okay, I can do that. And so I went to my employee and we had a conversation. And I said A, and I said B, and I said C. So what happened in that situation was I ended up, and my employee ended up having a totally different experience because an HR professional put words in my mouth, right? And so I would recommend that you don't presume that all of your managers know what to say, because they don't. It is very helpful to have a second pair of eyes come out and help to word craft some things. And that is how employees will benefit from getting better feedback on an ongoing basis, if you can teach those managers how to give that feedback in a more positive way. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk a little about your top performers. And before we do that, we thought we would show, as an intro to that, we thought we'd show a little bit of a clip. So Jennifer, why don't you show this clip here? It might be loud, so brace yourselves. Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys, give us one more second.
All right, now we just gotta get it to, here we go.
That was fast. All right, so Jennifer's going to bring our slide deck back up. So that was obviously a NASCAR race driver, aka Jennifer Hot Wheels Dickey. That was her.
Yeah, that's what
her debut.
That's what it's like when I get gas in the morning.
That's exactly what it's like. All right, so keep that video in your mind. So what they did in that video is they changed 2 tires and filled up the man's gas and got him back on the road. So it happened really quickly. Now, before we show you too much else, I'm going to introduce you to a few people on this next slide. The first one that you're about to see, his name is Justo Thomas, and Jennifer's going to bring it up for us. Justo is somebody you probably have never heard of, but Justo, for a living, he fillets fish. He works at a very fancy restaurant in New York City called Le Benadryl, and there he is with one of his prey, and Justo, you may not know him, but in culinary circles, he's a little bit of a celebrity. He can fillet 1,000 pounds of fish each day. So to put that in context, when Justo takes a day off of work, the boss has to call in 3 other people to replace him, because Justo does a lot of work very quickly, very efficiently. He's a top performer. And as you can see from the top of the slide, you can do more with less. And Justo is one of those people that can help you do more. All right, center. We see Serena Williams. Now, Serena needs no introduction, but she is obviously a female tennis player. She is the only individual to have won 6 Grand Slam tournaments, 6 singles titles in Grand Slam tournaments. So very, very accomplished. Now, you may not know this, but the female tennis circuit has 5,000 professional players. Only half of them have ever earned a dime from playing professional tennis. So Serena is obviously a top performer. You can do more with less when you have people like Serena. Now, last but not least, over on this right-hand side, you're going to see the pit crew for Kyle Busch. And this for a long time was one of the best pit crews in the country and just did a phenomenal job. So there's some research about them. These 6 individuals could do 73 maneuvers in 12.12 seconds. Now, if you replace one of those top performers with an average performer, that time doubles. It goes from 12 seconds to 24 seconds. Significant change in time. If you replace 2 of those top performers with average performers, the time goes from 12 seconds to 30 seconds, right? So the point is, top performers can produce more, and you all, we advocate that you understand who your top performers are so that you can do more with less. It's good to keep an eye on those individuals. Now, I'm going to tell you a story here. This is some research that came out of Burson by Deloitte. Many of you are familiar with the work they do at that organization. They met with a major bank, and this bank, they followed the same hiring practices all the time. So they went to the very best universities, they found the very smartest people in their class, and then they made sure that those brilliant individuals had fantastic references. And so the bank would always hire based on these 3 criteria. Well, what they found was that their top performers, they had a lot of different results. Even though they followed the same process, hiring process, they had a lot of different results across their sales team, which is what this was hiring for. And so they said, let's do research on our top sales performers. What do they have in common? Now, think for yourself for a second. What do you think they have in common? What would it be? Some people say extroverts. Some people say really pushy. Some people say really smart, whatever that is.
Blue hair.
Blue hair.
Yep.
That was not what I was thinking.
Okay,
Good
sorry.
for you, though, Jennifer.
Yep.
Now, I'll show you what actually they had in common. First, they had typo-free resumes. That's something I never guessed when I came upon this research, right? Typo-free resumes. Second, they had experience selling automobiles or real estate, these big ticket items. And lastly, they had a college degree. Didn't matter what the college degree was in, but they had one. Didn't matter if it was from a good university, an average, or a poor university. They had a degree. So this bank had a decision to make. Are we going to hire based on what we've always done, or are we going to really understand our top performers and try to get more of them? Well, they opted to hire based on this second set of criteria. In 6 months, they had an additional $4 million in revenue, really significant. So here again is the point. You can do more with your top performers, understand who they are, and try to attract more of them and try to retain the ones that you currently have.
So how do you find your top talent within your organization? Where do you even start? The first place that you want to start is sit back and figure out where and what your business strategy is telling you. You can have the best business strategy out there, but if your workforce strategy doesn't align with that business strategy, you're not going to get anywhere, right? So you want to make sure that that workforce strategy aligns directly with that business strategy. Next, differentiate your roles within your organization. Every organization has different roles within it. You've got a mission critical role, you've got core roles, and you've got foundation roles. Now, when you differentiate your roles, this doesn't mean that any roles within your organization are better than any other roles or more important. This just makes it easier when you're trying to identify your top talent, when you're trying to identify and benchmark your talent. Now, when you think of your mission critical roles, these are the roles that directly or more closely execute on your mission within your organization. So think about organizations like Starbucks or Disney. For anyone who has ever gone to Disney World or Disneyland, think about the individuals that work at Disney who directly executed on Disney's mission for you, who provided that magical experience for you and your family. Was it the people in marketing? Was it human resources? Probably not. It was probably the characters at Disney. It was those people that greeted you when you walked into Disney. Those were those mission critical roles. So when they are trying to figure out who their top talent is at Disney, they'd probably start there because they want the best and the brightest in those roles, because those are the people that are providing the magical experience and have a direct impact on the customers, right? And same thing when you go to Starbucks. The people that are directly impacting that mission at Starbucks, that have that direct contact with their customers, are those baristas. So that's probably where they're going to start too. The third step that you want to take is finding those individuals. Use data. We keep talking about data, but use it. You have it. You have it within your HRIS system, your payroll systems, your recruiting systems. You may utilize some assessments when you use your recruiting systems. So we all have some sort of data. Start sifting through that data and actually utilize it. Once you utilize that data, make sure that you get manager buy-in. Managers, again, are working so closely with those individuals on a day-to-day basis. You want to make sure that you run that data that you've assessed and say, okay, this is who I'm thinking is my top talent. Am I right? Am I not? They're going to give you the heads up, yes or no. Once you've identified who they are, let that top talent know. Why keep it a secret? Let them know. And once you let them know, move to that fourth step and make sure that you have a guidepost for them. Develop a continued plan for those future performers. What's next for them? Review assigned goals and performance metrics. Are the goals and metrics that you have assigned for them going to keep them engaged in the things that matter most? Is it going to continue to enhance their skills? Are they aligned with business strategies? And then review comp plans assigned to them. Is it competitive? Is it marketable? So in order to build the template, utilizing the data that you have for them, you want to use something like this. It's completely customizable. You can keep anything you want. You can take away anything you want. You can add in things, anything you want. But this is a good start. It's a good start for a top performer profile. Here we have Sarah, her critical role or her top performance role as a barista, some core competencies and experience that make her a top performer, those benchmark skills that make her a top performer, goals that have been assigned to her, her comp ratio, and we'll talk about that, but that is the percentage of where she falls within her grade level, her salary grade level, her performance score, and then her engagement level score. Once you get all of the data and you kind of plot that out, you want to take a look at it. Where is everything falling? Is there anything that needs to be changed? One thing that stood out to me for Sarah was her goals. So goals assigned, we've got customer service, makes sense. Inventory management, makes sense. She's in retail. Attendance. For attendance, that doesn't make sense to me. For attendance for somebody like this, a top performer, that's not going to drive performance. That's not going to keep her engaged in the things that matter most. Attendance to me is a basic expectation. Attendance to me is not something that's going to keep her motivated. So attendance is something that we would take out and make sure that we have a goal that is directly aligned to help her drive business, help her keep her engaged in those things that matter most, and help her make sure that we've created a guidepost for her for future performance, okay? So let's talk about compensation. And as we talk about compensation, we are going to look at another video. So give us a quick second as we do that.
I like this video. Some of you have already heard about Gravity Payments, and you're going to see something about their CEO, Dan Price. We hope that it gives you a different perspective on pay.
So excited to share with you. This guy has to be up for Boss of the Year. You know, it's the pay gap between chief executives and the average worker. It is expanding rapidly. This man is doing something drastically different. He's taking a pay cut to give his employees big raises. ABC's Rebecca Jarvis has our story.
Imagine walking into work and finding out you and your colleagues will be doubling your pay, while your boss takes a pay cut.
We're going to have a minimum $70,000 pay rate for everyone that works here.
That's exactly what happened to the employees at Gravity Payments when Dan Price, the CEO, decided everyone at the company, no matter their position, would earn a minimum of $70,000 a year. Price was troubled by the pay gap. In the United States, one of the world's largest, with chief executives earning nearly 300 times what the average worker makes. So he cut his own salary from nearly $1 million to $70,000.
There's actually a Princeton study, and they said what level of income actually generates happiness, and they determined that it's actually around $70,000.
The study showed that for people who earn less than $70,000, extra money can make a big difference in their lives. For Alyssa O'Neill, a single mother, the extra money in her paycheck means more time to spend with family.
It's going to be exciting. It's the first time he loves Mickey, so we're going to Disneyland, I think.
Out of 120 employees, 70 will get raises, with 30 doubling their salaries.
I think the thing that holds people back is a lack of independence. I think it's up to each of us to decide what's right for us and what we want to do.
Now, in addition to that pay cut, Dan Price is also using company profits to pay for the raises. That can be risky, but he says he is confident that his employees have more than earned it and they will continue to. And not surprisingly, guys, since this announcement, they're getting thousands of new jobs. Everybody wants to I wonder why.
Those were happy employees. So what Dan Price did is he said everybody's going to make a minimum of $70,000. And that's what we're advocating on today's webinar. So we'd say go and implement that.
Exactly. You think that's a great idea?
I think it's a great idea. No. We don't. We take it back. Don't necessarily run off and do that. But it does speak to how organizations are thinking about pay and how individuals experience pay.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on here to this next screen here. So in talking about compensation, I can get that next screen out of here. There we go. So your employees are going to be talking about compensation. Even though you don't want them to, they're talking about compensation, right? So they openly talked about it with Dan Price, and he was able to listen to them and talked about it with them as well. Wow, that screen just keeps coming up, right? So we're going to get rid of that. I love our technical issue here. There we go. Now let's see if I can get rid of it on this one here. There we go. It's coming. There you go. So when your employees are top performers, there was an actual Ceridian Pulse of Talent. And in that Pulse of Talent, they reported that the #1 reason that high performers quit their job is because they felt that their salary wasn't competitive, which is crazy because we all see different reports. And in those different reports, we all assume that it's probably because they have a poor relationship with their managers or there's bad communication. Well, for your high performers, they know that they're high performers, and they know, or they're getting tapped on the shoulder from other competitors. And those competitors, what they're doing is they're flaunting money to those top performers. So we got to make sure that we're paying competitively. How do we do that? We have to reevaluate and make sure that we have the right information and the right data to evaluate our compensation strategies. And what's interesting is we need to find out why our top performers are leaving. How do you do that? Your top performers, they're smart. When a top performer leaves, more than likely, they're going to tell you that they're leaving because it's a great opportunity. They're not going to tell you that they're leaving because their compensation isn't competitive. And they're going to tell you that because they know how important relationships are, right? Your lower performers feel very comfortable telling you, you know what, you didn't pay me enough. So we need to dig a little deeper. If you do exit surveys, what I would suggest is add another question. So your top performers are going to say, you know what, it's a great opportunity. Add a sub-question, another question right below that and say, what percentage of an increase are you going to be receiving with your new position? If you're finding that it's a pretty significant increase and it's going to be the same position, at least you can start collecting data. It's a great start. And you need that data because you need to start building a case. You can't do anything about your compensation unless you have data. You can't go to your CEO and say, you know what, all of our top performers are leaving and it's because of comp. He's going to look for data, and at least you can start building your business case, right? So, Katie, if we can launch that second poll, and that second poll asks, how competitive do you feel the pay is at your organization? A, is it too high? And if it's too high, you just let Isaac and myself know. We'll be more than happy to fill out applications. B, is it just right? C, too low? Or D, not sure?
All right, here comes the poll.
Katie's got it launched.
Katie's doing it. Okay, so I think, I don't want to skew the results, but I think that I know what we're going to see based on what we've seen before. And it's interesting, we saw...
What was that, Katie?
Oh, just let me know when you want me to close the poll.
Great.
How about another 5 seconds and we'll close it out.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, Katie, what are the results?
So it looks like 6% say too high, 33% say just right, 56%
Was that 43 or 33?
33.
Great.
33, got it.
And then 56% too low, and then 6% say not sure.
Not sure.
Okay, yep. This is a pretty typical group again.
It is. All right, too high people, let me know.
Stay with us, Jennifer. Don't go anywhere.
Exactly, but no, that is very typical, and especially the people that, you know, I wish I knew. Yep.
Well, yeah, so if you're looking for data, there are ways to get that. We see so frequently people saying that it's too low. We also see the people who say that their pay is too low at their organization, only about 30% of their leadership agrees with them, right? And so oftentimes HR understands that there's a pay problem, and the C-suite is a little slower to learn that lesson. And so again, this is what Jennifer's saying is we need to have data to present to the C-suite so that they can make responsible decisions. So many organizations use base annual increase, or they base their annual increases on performance scores. So people do this performance management score, or they get this throughout the year, and they finish the year and they use that to determine how much of an increase people get. So we're going to talk about that for just a minute here. So that's done for a few different reasons. It helps to motivate employees to contribute more. Also, you naturally, in many systems, you want to naturally reward your top performers, right? If it's a meritocracy, then so it is. You need to do that. And sometimes your top performers expect that. Very often they do. And sometimes the whole culture expects it, right? Whether they're a top performer or not. That's just what's been designed and worked for the culture there. So now, this is one of the things that makes this process successful. When you base annual increases on performance, you need to have enough of a difference between what your top performers get and what your bottom performers get to excite and reward those top performers, okay? So if you are giving 2.5% increase to your lowest performers, and a 2.75% to your top performers, that probably doesn't reward those top performers appropriately. We'd recommend that you have a big enough spread between those two numbers to incentivize those top performers and to encourage poor performers to contribute more as well, okay? Now, there are other organizations that don't base their annual increases on performance, right? And that's for, oh, there's our little icon, moving our shaking little teeter-totter there. So other organizations don't base their annual increases on performance, and there's a couple of reasons. Sometimes they don't trust their performance management process, right? Maybe they do their performance management process, and surprise, surprise, everybody gets a 5 out of 5. These are all amazing employees, right? Well, that tells us that the performance management process isn't quite set up the right way, or that there are ways to improve that. So if it's not working, if your performance management process isn't working, then you probably want to reconsider what your actions are. First, we'd recommend that you fix that, and then maybe you want to base annual increases on their performance. Now, sometimes this is the same reason. Sometimes it's expected that everybody wins together or loses together, and so everybody's increase is going to be similar. Now, let's talk for just a moment about increases. We're going to do a little bit of math here. Not much, I promise you. So what do you get when you take a non-competitive salary and you add a 3% increase to it at the end of the year?
Wait, I got to get a calculator.
Okay, Jennifer's getting out her abacus.
Okay.
Crunching numbers. So this is what happens oftentimes is organizations don't know if their pay is competitive, or they know that it's kind of low. And then they add 3% to it at the end of the year. But the result is that you end up with a non-competitive salary, right? So this is the idea. When you don't have a competitive salary, even if you give a 3% increase at the end of the year, you still have another non-competitive salary. That's problematic because the market moves with you. Every year the market moves. And so if you're only keeping up with the market, you remain with an non-competitive compensation. Okay? We're going to talk just for a moment about compensation strategy, compensation philosophy. I'm going to bring these up here. Now, Jennifer talked about your top performers. The number one reason your top performers leave is for pay, according to this survey. Now, according to another survey, the number one reason your regular employees stay, all employees, the number one reason they stay is because their pay is competitive, right? So you want to make sure, at the bare minimum, to ensure that your wages are competitive in your space, okay? That is very important. So we want you to keep that in mind. Now, the way to figure out if you're competitive or not is to use something called salary survey data, and many of you use this. Now, there's 3 types of salary survey data out there, and I want to introduce you to that. The first, you're going to see on your bottom right. This is crowdsourced data. So this is data that you can go to a website and say, how much should this certain position make, right? And it's going to give you a number. Now, the issue that occurs then is that crowdsourced data is inaccurate, right? It's based on whatever somebody wants to tell the software that they make. I could go in there and say, I am a director and I make $700,000 a year. What do other directors make, right? I have then skewed the data. So we recommend that you stay away from self-reported data. Now, other sources, like salary surveys, those are reliable sources. We recommend that you use those. Now, you may just use one salary survey. That's a great start. We'd really recommend that you go with this middle option and that you use multiple data sources. The reason for that is that each of these salary surveys is skewed a little bit. It's a little bit biased, right? That's natural and normal. But when you base a strategy based on biases, then you have a compensation strategy, which is in turn biased. And so the best way to get around that is to use multiple surveys. Now, when you have surveys, we recommend that you use a term called compa ratios. Many of you are familiar with compa ratios. If you're not familiar with the term, you're probably familiar with the concept. So in this instance, you can see that we have here Emily, and Emily makes $31,500 a year. Now, you can see Emily's pay range. The midpoint is $35,000, and it goes from $28,000 to $42,000. Well, Emily, her compa ratio can be calculated by dividing her pay by the midpoint. So $31,500 divided by $35,000 is a 90% compa ratio. So this is different than looking at quartiles, right? We're not looking at big quartiles. We're looking at specifically where is she, because there's a big difference between being at the low end of a quartile and the top end of a quartile, right? Big difference. So in this case, we would be able to look at Emily's pay and know where she is. Now, if Emily had a really low compa ratio, an 80% compa ratio, we got to know that we're at risk of losing her. Now, if she had a really high compa ratio, over 120%, for example, well, then we know that we're paying her far more than the market suggests we should, and we're losing money on that. We can pay people fairly and still do right by the company. So the beauty behind compa ratios is that in 3 seconds, you can look down a list of compa ratios, and immediately you know where your problem issues are, your problem spots are. So we recommend that you use compa ratios as opposed to using quartiles, and your life will change. Now, I'm going to show you what that looks like here. This next slide right here is going to show you some compa ratios. There's a compa ratio at 63%, really low. We have to know that we're at risk of losing that individual. Now, 2 other compa ratios, one for Laura, one for Joey. Laura has a really high compa ratio. Joey has a really low compa ratio, but they have the exact same position. So this becomes problematic when Joey says, hey, I'm making significantly less money than my colleague for doing the exact same job, and it's because I'm a minority. That's kind of one of those worst case scenarios, and that happens. There are states that are passing laws which are going to be really critical of these types of scenarios. So if you're using quartiles, you're going to be behind the grade. What do you get behind? Behind the grade.
Yeah, behind the grade. Yeah.
And if you're using compa ratios, you'll be able to justify things and stay ahead of the grade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, a couple of things that we'd have you know. You need technology to help you track these things, right? You use technology for your performance management. You use payroll,
recruiting,
onboarding, right?
Yep.
You use technology. If you haven't looked at compensation technology in some time, we recommend that you go out there and look at some. The price point has come to a place where it is becoming much easier to get that type of information. So I want to show you a few things. I want to show you a few ways that technology is changing the landscape, and then we're going to show you a few things that some of these tools that we like out there can do for you, just to put some ideas out there for you. So first of all, I'm going to start with this bottom item. We talked about how employees have access to less accurate data. Employees have access to it. You have access to it through websites. It's important to understand what that data is, a little bit less accurate, and be able to speak to it. Technology is also making it easier to gather salary data. You may not have to participate in salary surveys anymore, but you could still get the results of that. Would that be a nice thing to free up about a month's worth of time by not participating in salary surveys? Likewise, analytics is another way that you're going to get some insight. Software is really doubling down on its ability to deliver analytics to you. So I won't walk you through everything on this, but one of the applications out there that we think is fantastic has this type of analytic ability, where you can look at compa ratios by gender, by ethnicity, by position, by location, by performance score. So this is the type of information that you would then take to your C-suite and say, this is why I feel we're paying too little. Here are the numbers. And this tells a very compelling story for someone in the C-suite. Now, sometimes you have individuals who they're kind of hybrid positions. And these hybrid positions can be hard to grade out. Technology can facilitate that. So, for example, we walk into an office and we say, what does this position do? And someone tells us, well, they're our digital content writer. And by the way, they do some customer support. And also, they do payroll for us. We really appreciate that. And then we get into the conversation and say, oh, by the way, we also have these guys doing user interface design. That comes in really handy. And so it's important to know that there's software out there to help with these hybrid positions. Those can be hard to grade, but you need to understand those. Okay. Now, so compensation software will do a few things for you. It'll simplify the conversations that you're having with the C-suite. Also, it creates a structure. So which employee, which positions should be in which grades, and how much did each of those positions make? Well, that's exactly what good compensation software will do for you. It'll also help you identify the trends and blind spots that may already exist within your process. You may have one manager who hires people in at a low comp ratio, while another manager in a different location managing the same team hires people in at a really high comp ratio. That can be fine if it's intentional, but oftentimes it's not. So good compensation can help you find those little issues. And by understanding those issues, then you can optimize your compensation practices, and that helps you to preempt serious compensation issues.
So in order to enrich that employee experience and make sure that you've got those top employees, one, identified, developed, and engaged, make sure you go through the steps. Make sure you have good tools. The good tools to easily track goal assignment, goal achievement, that they're aligned with business strategies, and ensure that your managers are coaching to accountability. Find out who those people are within your organization. It does. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy, but you have the data. You have the resources. Once you've found them, recognize who those individuals are and make sure that they know that they are your top performers and why they've been put into that category. Then create that guidepost for them so that they know what their career strategy is, that they have a talent map. Then make sure that you're engaging top performers. Identify if your pay is competitive, create that comp strategy, and make sure that you have the right tools and partners so that you can effectively drive your compensation strategy. That's all we have today. As we said in the beginning, make sure that you connect with us at hello@hrperformancesolutions.net. We'd love to connect with individuals. Let us know what you're doing to identify and retain your top talent. Other than that, thank you so much for participating with us.
Thanks, guys. I just also want to point out how nice Jennifer's hair looks in this picture relative to 1992.
Oh, yes. No more rave number 5.
No more rave number 5. May it rest in peace.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. Great to be with you.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.